The 2025 Rogue Invitational has come to an end, and I have to say, this is probably one of my favorite competitions. Rogue just does everything so well. The programming, not perfect, but it was really exciting, led to some great races, and a lot of changing on the leaderboard, especially on the men's side. And from a visual perspective, as somebody who has worked in media for, I don't know, might be getting close to 15 years, that's crazy, but someone who has worked in media for a very, very long time, the broadcast is one of the best. We don't really see this type of broadcast outside of the games, and some of the things they've been doing with, you know, some of those graphics and things like that, really, really great. Were there a couple shots where they missed the race? Yes. But I think that happens a lot. When you have 10 people on the field who are doing things very quickly, it gets easy to miss people. There was one moment where Ariel Lowen finished really well in a workout. We didn't really see her until she was running across the field for the finish. So things like that did still happen, but it was pretty, which is a plus. I think the announcers were great. Adrian Conway and Sean Woodland, two of the best in the space, very entertaining, very informative. So enjoyed that. And it's very professional and just one of the best events in the space. So if you didn't get to see it, I would recommend going back and watching some of it. Also, Rogue cut each individual event and put those as their own videos on YouTube, which makes it so much easier to find some of these things if you do want to go back and watch some of the events. The duel was done better than it ever has been before. It was quick. They did the women, then they did the men. They were able to tabulate the women's scores while the men were competing, and then they went right into the next heat of women, the next round and heats of women. So moved very, very well and was great for the broadcast because it kept people engaged.
You know, we've also listened to the feedback that the duel has been too long and it's not watchable. While it's a fun event on site, it's hard to watch on broadcast. And so we've taken that. I think this year was the best year it's ever been.
There were some weird events from a programming perspective. Event 3, the one with all of those back squats, the heavy dumbbell snatch, and the sandbag cleans. That wrecked some people from what I've heard. There were people that were a mess from that event.
Can you verify that there were some tears in the back? Athletes were broken?
I mean, I was crying, but that's
I didn't even hear you were crying. I heard others were crying.
For myself, it just was like frustration of like wanting to push harder, but like I literally just couldn't. Like in the squats, it wasn't even my legs. Like I just couldn't brace anymore. It was a brutal workout. Like 3 rounds like would have made the point. The 4th round was just like kick you while you're down.
People saying that they experienced DOM setting in before the event was actually over. Then we had Colton Mertens, who looked like he didn't even do an event. He beat the 2nd place time by almost 2 minutes, I believe, which is insane. But that event may have been slightly over-programmed. I think a lot of people were feeling it by the end of the weekend, and I think that event likely had a hand in that. It was 4 rounds, heavy, just a whole ton of work in a 9-event, 3-day competition. So might have been a tiny bit over-programmed there. Then there was the workout with handstand push-ups. They were wall-facing handstand push-ups and heavy deadlifts. I feel like from watching the event, the handstand push-ups meant almost nothing. And it was just a heavy deadlift workout. There was someone like Alexis Raptis, who is one of the best at handstand push-ups, came in 2nd to last, I believe, in that event. And that's because her back may still be not 100%. Heavy deadlifts, the handstand push-up didn't matter. It didn't matter with those heavy deadlifts. And Laurel Horvath, handstand push-ups being what's usually her kryptonite, she was one of the best athletes in that event as well. So just a little bit confusing when it comes to that sort of stuff. I believe she finished 3rd, Laura Horvath, in the handstand push-up event.
And we were told that they were brief no kip. Was Laura Horvath and Kerstetter, were they kipping? And is that something that needs to be addressed in the future?
I think there's always things that can be addressed on movement standards, judging, all of the above. And I would like that. That's an ongoing thing for any competition.
Which usually puts her in like an almost last place position. But the truth is she cleared second place by 85 points. So even if she took almost last, with Emma Tall having pulled out, I believe she would have gotten 5 points even if she took last. Unlikely that Laura Horvath would have fallen out of first with a handstand push-up workout that was more significant. So let's go into our leaderboard because we kind of just touched on that a little bit. Laura Horvath winning this event by 85 points. She was dominant most of the weekend. She wasn't in first after the first event, but she had 2 first place finishes in event 4 and event 5, putting her in first with a pretty good cushion. She looked happy during part of this event, which I feel like we don't see as much smiliness from Laura Horvath. Usually she's more of a tough competitor, a stoic competitor, but we saw some smiles and having some good times during this event.
I think there's always going to be comparisons in any sport when you have that, when someone's not there. You know, that in the history of sport, that always happens. But what I will say about Laura, she came out here and kicked ass, and she was lighter, she was smiling. She's very methodical in her approach to each workout, and she came here to do a job, and she did it.
And I get the vibe, but I've heard some different things from some other people, but I get the vibe that this is her main competition.
It's really the event that I look forward to every year. So I really appreciate we all girls can showcase our best.
I heard some other people, Savan on Savan podcast, talking about how he thinks she's coming back to the games next year. I don't know. Based on that statement, it makes it sound like this is her games. And if she's not going to beat someone like Tia, and if Tia's going to continue competing, I know she didn't look good at Wodapalooza. I do really believe that's because she's taking time off. So if that's the case, if she's taking time off, it doesn't look great because of that, she won't be taking time off before the CrossFit Games. Tia-Claire Toomey. She'll be dialing everything in for the CrossFit Games. If Laura doesn't believe that she can beat Tia at the CrossFit Games, while she can make a lot of money there, if Tia doesn't care as much about doing Rogue anymore, Laura actually makes more money betting on Rogue than she would coming in second or worse to Tia at the CrossFit Games. So if she wants to stick with this, not doing the CrossFit Games season and sticking with outside competitions, Rogue is a great one to do. And with what she said in her post interview, I get the vibe that this is her games.
It's really the event that I look forward to every year.
But let me know in the comments below if you think something different. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel while you're here right now. I make videos all year long. Rogue is kind of our last competition before the CrossFit Games season starts because Wodapalooza has been moved to March. But other things will be going on. I'll have more videos, so subscribe if you want to stay tuned for all of that. In second place was someone I also had on the podium. So I did a preview to this. I got 2 of the 3 women correct, although I had Alex Lizanne, who was in second, in third place. I was very impressed by Alex Lizanne. I was hesitant to put her on my podium. The car accident that Alex Lizanne was in could have ended her CrossFit career. It did end her game season. She had to pull out of the CrossFit Games, but she made it back to Rogue. I didn't know what we were gonna see from Alex. A healthy Alex, and Alex had been training all year. I may have thought she could have challenged Laura for the top of the podium. But I was nervous putting her on my podium because she hasn't been training at her top ability. She just pulled out of WFP a little over a month ago. So I was concerned about what we might see, but knowing what Alex Lizanne is capable of at her best, this would have been a great competition for her. And it was. It was a great competition. Finishing second to Laura Horvath, who is usually in a league of her own as well, is fantastic. We did see her sort of fall off at the beginning of day 3, and I was wondering if it was gonna be a not great day for her all around, but she did finish it with a 4th. We started out with the long run with event 7 on day 3. That's not gonna ever be Alex Lizanne's jam. This is actually, I believe, better than she's ever finished in the run. She finished 10th. 11th on the next event, the overhead squats and the burpees was a bit surprising, although it's not like a Gazan workout necessarily. I just wouldn't think that it was bottom half for her. But not enough to really take her out of contention for the second place position, and then a fourth to round out day 3 on the final event. So pretty impressive performance from Alex Gazan, especially coming off on the injury. I think that they should put everyone on notice for Gazan's 2026 season, that this injury has not put her back that significantly. And also with her little fall off at the beginning of day 3, something that also went through my head was, is this because she just hasn't been training at the same volume as the other women? Which we know. Like, she said that she's not training quite at the volume that I think she would for this competition if she was healthy all year. So that may have caught up to her a touch at the beginning of day 3, but she rallied at the end, held her second place position. Incredibly impressive from Alex Gazan. And the next athlete, also very impressive. That is Lucy Campbell. I did not have Lucy Campbell on my podium. I did have her as someone to watch. Why did I not have her on my podium? Rogue is a strength event, and Lucy Campbell is not the strongest of athletes. But, and I mentioned this in my other video, it's almost dumb not to put her on the podium. She won Wadapalooza, she won her semifinals, she came in second at the CrossFit Games. But again, Rogue is just not geared towards the athlete that she is. But maybe it is, because she finished third. She killed it. Very impressive. She started out slow. First event, 15th. Second event, 11th. But then on that crazy squatting heavy event at the end of day 1, event 3, she finished third. And she had a 12th and a 14th in there, but she got some solid finishes. Some, like, she either hit it out of the park or was very mid. She has a 15th and 11th, a 12th and a 14th. Those are all very mid to not great. But then she has third, second, first, third. So she knew where she was gonna make her money, and she did that well. And she sent it on the final event and did what she needed to get only 5 points over Emma Lawson, who finished in 4th, but was sitting in 3rd going into that event. So Lucy did exactly what she needed to get the win there. I think Lucy, yes, would have had the tiebreaker if they had the same number of points, but she didn't even need to do that. She didn't even need to go to the tiebreaker because she did what she needed to do. Emma Lawson, this was also a fantastic performance from her. She finished in 4th place. I was a little worried about Emma Lawson because of her back injury, because she struggled on the deadlift workout at WFP back in September. The handstand push-up deadlift workout was one of her not so great finishes, but she did great lots of other places, and she still picked up that final heavy barbell. So I think Emma Lawson is just gonna keep climbing back, someone to watch in the 2026 CrossFit Games season. This is the beginning of her comeback and the beginning of Emma Lawson threatening for the podium at every competition that she's at. She did that here. She did threaten for it. But I think she's gonna be like, where is she gonna finish question. Although we've got a lot of women that are really good right now, so we'll see how Emma Lawson makes her way back into that conversation. In 5th, another kid, and that is Olivia Kerstetter, coming off a 3rd place finish at the CrossFit Games. Rogue is a good event for her. The run event, which was announced last minute, was her 2nd to worst finish. She got 16th on that, and then she also had a 17th place finish in event 4. But Olivia Kerstetter is part-time student, part-time athlete. Maybe she's a full-time student and a full-time athlete. But Olivia Kerstetter has just gotten better and better, and she's still certainly on the way up. Where someone like Laura Horvath is a little bit older and only has so many years left, likely, we don't know, but likely, Olivia Kerstetter could have more than a decade left to go in this sport, because she's like 19. 6th place was Danielle Brandon, who was actually in 1st place after the first 2 events, and then took an 18th. She never really made it back into that mix for the top of the podium. I think once she got that 18th, we knew that that was the end of Danielle Brandon's name near the top. Just where is she gonna finish in the top 10? Solid finish for Danielle Brandon, who's just not a strength athlete. This is not her best competition, but she did well. Grace Walton made it to 7th. She got a 1st place finish in that final event. Grace Walton can mess up an Echo Bike, we know that. Danny Spiegel in 8th. I didn't put her on my list to watch. I probably should have. This is Rogue. She's gonna get some great finishes. She was in 3rd place at one point over this weekend and tied for points, I believe, for 1st at one point. And she just falls off on some other stuff as the weekend gets going. We had that long run. That's just not going to be her jam. But there is enough here that I probably should have considered Danny Spiegel to be in the top half of this field because of the strength element of it. I do love that when she finished 19th, which was last because Emma Tall pulled out of this competition, she didn't finish the event. That was the running event, but she was high-fiving people at the end. She looked happy, and that's a way to like lose with grace. And I really appreciate that from Danny. Let's go down the list a little bit. Brooke Wells finishing in 9th. This is sort of her retirement tour. Ariel Lowen looked not like herself at the end of this competition. She had her worst day as day 3. She finished 19th, which is last again, in the overhead squat burpee workout. And her burpees looked more labored than you usually even see at the gym, like in a regular class. I don't know if there's something going on there, but not the Ariel Lowen we're used to seeing in those couple reps. Maddie Sturt finished 11th. Alexis Raptis finishing 12th. Emily Rolfe, who was in the bottom, like near the bottom coming into day 3, had a solid finish to bring herself into 13th. 3rd, 5th, and 2nd, and all the positions are paid out. And I believe the bottom 5 all get like about $5,000, $6,000, and then it gets a little bit better after that. So Emily Rolfe making her way into 13th with a good day 3 could help her bring a couple extra bucks home. Paige Rogers finished in 14th. That's formerly Paige Powers. A decent showing for her. She's still coming back from having just given birth a few months ago. She won Crash Crucible, but that just isn't the same field as Rogue. Rogue is like the most elite field outside of the games. Paige held her own at times. Still, I think she's on her comeback. Manan Anganese in 15th. Alicia Fuliano, someone I didn't mention in my last video that some people were like, why didn't you mention her? She did not compete in the game season. She would have qualified for the games at semifinals if she had done the Open. She did not. She's been doing some competitions in Europe, but those just aren't at the level of Rogue, like I just mentioned, talking about Paige Rogers. So she just hasn't gotten touches with these athletes in a long time. And it's hard to compete against this level of competition. 16th for her. Abigail Domet in 17th. 18th was Paige Semenza. Haley Adams did not look great this weekend in 19th. Coming into day 3, she wasn't even ahead of Emma Tall. I did have her on my podium, but she pulled out after day 1, so we didn't get to see a lot of Emma Tall. She does struggle with injuries sometimes. We've seen her pull out of events for this type of stuff before, so we'll see if she can stay healthy long enough to put it together at more competitions. Now that she's working with Proven, maybe that'll help. Okay, let's move over to your men's leaderboard. So the men's race was tight the entire time. And it was exciting going into even the last event because there was some questions about if the 2nd place athlete could overtake the 1st, which was not at all a question on the women's side. So this was exciting race all weekend. We have a lot of really great men competing in CrossFit right now. There were some events that I felt like lent themselves to the bigger guys at this competition, like, well, a lot of it because it is Rogue and it is a strength competition, but especially that duel. Jumping over those logs seemed so much easier for the bigger athletes, and also pulling that sled seemed so much easier for the bigger athletes. And if you look at the athletes that won the duel, being Jason Hopper and Laura Horvath, both of those are big, strong athletes. And even the people that were in the finals on the women's and men's side. Danny Spiegel, Laura Horvath, Jason Hopper, Roman Krennikov, all really big. I think that log over really limits the ability for some of the smaller athletes to compete in that fast of an event. But that's just Rogue. Anyway, the person that won on the men's side, not the tallest and biggest athlete. So maybe it all balances out. In first, we have the person I put in first, and that is Jeffrey Adler.
Yeah, get me a beer.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were calling on him to win this event, to bounce back after not having the CrossFit Games that we expected him to have. And we saw that from Jeff. Now he's won Rogue twice. I think that Jeff is still someone who's at the top of his game, despite that little hiccup we saw at the CrossFit Games this year. In second, we have someone who's coming back, I think, and that is Justin Medeiros. Justin was in first for a little bit during this competition, but in podium contention for a lot of it. He had all solid finishes except for event 4. The rest were all in the top 7. He was top 7 in every event except for event 4, where he finished 13th. So very impressive performance from Justin Medeiros. I think he, again, is someone to look at to maybe try to make his way back to winning the CrossFit Games. I think Justin Medeiros, if he puts together a good offseason, can be a threat at the CrossFit Games next year. He looked very good here at Rogue. He looked lean, he looked focused. Like, I think this could be the start of a really great 2026 for Justin Medeiros. And in third, someone I did have on my podium as well. Roman Krennikov was not a person that a ton of people were talking about to make it on the podium, but he did really well at WFP. He seems to be dialing in at this time, and he's podiumed at Rogue before. This is an event that kind of lends itself to someone like Roman. He is big, he is strong, and he's also good at running. So when you have that run event, like event 7, that ended up having more than a 5K of a run in it, that's not something that is like, oh no, is Roman gonna fall off here? No, Roman's gonna dial it in, and Roman's gonna do even better here. Roman's gonna continue to climb with this run. And then when you throw the assault bike in later, he's gonna continue to make his way even farther up the leaderboard. And that is exactly what happened. Roman had a 3rd place finish in that running event. At the end of event 8, Roman looked like he had a good chance of ending up on the podium. And then he left no doubt. He won event 9. And in 4th was James Sprague. I was a little nervous about leaving him in 4th because of how well he's done all year. But Rogue is not his jam, but he's making it his jam. Finishing 4th in this field, incredibly impressive. A great finish for James. I mean, he could podium at Rogue next year. He is a threat. He's showing us that the heavyweights are not really deterring him anymore. They're not putting him behind the rest of the field. And James has a long career in front of him. In 5th, Jay Crouch. I said he'd probably get about 6th. That's where he seems to end up a lot of the time. 5th is a little better than I expected. Jay is just becoming a perennial top 10 athlete that just hasn't quite been able to crack the podium at the biggest competitions yet. Jason Hopper, a little bit of a disappointing finish for him in 6th. I think a lot of people had him on the podium. I had him on the podium. He had a couple bad finishes with an 18th to start out the event, and then a 17th on that overhead squat burpee workout. While that's not a great workout for him, being a longer athlete, we saw someone like James Sprague, who's also a longer athlete, getting a 13th. So I think he could have done a little bit more on that event. 7th was Ricky Garrard. He killed that running workout. As soon as that was announced, I knew he would. But Rogue is just not the best event for a Ricky type athlete. And that's sort of how I felt going into it. And that's ended up being what happened. Patrick Vellner, a little bit surprised by the end of his weekend. He was sitting in 1st place going into day 3. And then he finished with his worst finishes. He had all top 8, nothing less than 8th place in the first 6 events. Then finished day 3 with a 13th, a 16th, and a 17th. That's a significant fall off. And we also had 2 men pull out of this event. So that would mean 17th is second to last. Not a great finish for Patrick Vellner. I don't know if he has an injury or if we're just seeing the results of the weekend, fatigue, maybe age, not sure. But I thought Patrick Vellner could threaten for the podium. I ended up leaving him off my podium, and he did a little bit less well than I expected him to. But I think Pat Vellner may be coming back to the CrossFit Games season. We'll see if he signs up for the Open. Colton Mertens finishing in 9th. I think that's solid for him. Again, I mentioned some of these events were really difficult for some of the smaller people. Well, he also was able to kill some of the events that were squatting events that are just his jam. But he has 2 19th place finishes. 10th, Austin Hatfield, who I didn't put on my podium, and some people were talking about him closer to that area. I just feel like the back half of the season hasn't been ideal for him. He started out really strong. I don't know if that is he approached the season wrong, or if he's just new to the format of Rogue, and that's the impact we saw here. In 11th, we have Chandler Smith. I thought he could have possibly made his way into the top 10. He was only 5 points away from that, so it's not like he was too far off. But Rogue is usually a decent competition for Chandler. Henrik Haapalainen, I think a 12th place for him, fantastic. He's coming off of a pretty major injury. This is his first competition back, so 12th, pretty awesome for him. 13th, Jonakoski. 14th, Guy Malheiros. 15th was Fabian Hermans, who made it in off of the qualifier. I think a lot of people expected him to be dead last. Not the case. So pretty impressive there. BKG was your 16th place athlete. 17th was Saxon Panchak, who just found out he was doing this like a couple weeks ago, maybe, when Dallin Pepper pulled out. 18th, Harry Lightfoot. I think some people were disappointed by that. Samuel Quant is in 19th. He ruptured his Achilles on the duel. We've seen the duel take out a lot of athletes. I just think it's that sprint element of it, and the fact that they always have athletes jumping to some degree. And we saw 2 last year, 2 injuries on that, and 1 this year. And Uldis Upniks also had an injury, and he pulled out, so he ended up in 20th. So that's Rogue. I think this is a great competition, one of my favorites to watch. This may be the last time they do it in Scotland.
It could be our last year here. It's like, maybe will be our last year here, but we think so. I think, we like to do 2 years in a spot and move. I just don't know where that's going to be yet.
So I'm excited to see where they could be next year. It's a fantastic competition to watch. I hear it's fantastic for the athletes, and I think they've really picked the right number. It's an invitational. They invite 20 women, 20 men, and that has resulted in both heats being entertaining. Both female and male heats are just great the entire way through, worth watching. I feel like at a lot of competition, there's some times where like you just don't feel like watching it because it just feels redundant, and it's just not that exciting, some of those earlier heats. All of the heats here are exciting. It's kind of like the Mayhem Classic, which also I believe had 20 athletes. Just keeps it super exciting. The competition's all very good, and you can always have someone in the first heat win the event, which we saw multiple times at this competition. Really awesome competition. Can't wait for Rogue 2026 and the 2026 CrossFit Games season, which we keep on getting more news about. I will have more content about that. Like I said earlier, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought about Rogue, and I appreciate you all for watching. And so does Carson. Want to say goodbye? Hi. Okay, say bye. Wave goodbye. Bye. Bye.